Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name is Amy Henserling, and you are listening to Watch This List. This is the 6th episode of my series, Psychoanalyze This, with Seth Troyer of the Unwatchables podcast. Before we get into what the heck Seth is up to with his buddy Mark Tatavio, I wanted to acknowledge the fact that the movie that we chose to do together is a movie that I would have never chosen for myself, and that is perfect for Seth Troyer over here because it has all of the aesthetics that he normally vibes with.
Well, yeah, and I kind of was timid about it because we were talking about other films that are maybe more on the nose, like Manhunter, which is like, well, there's a serial killer and an
Mysterious
investigator
Skin.
and trauma. What's
We
that?
we talked about Mysterious Skin. Yeah.
Which, life is long. We'll do all of those. But
Yeah.
This one I knew is what you kind of want from these, it seems, is like one that really vibes with the guest, it seems, like on a personal level, your own psychology, which, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a serial killer or anything, and I'm not struggling necessarily with huge amounts of trauma or something. This has to do with the psychoanalyzing why someone does what they do, I think, in a very practical way, and it can be applied to all sorts of. This is like a more about being an eccentric or being an artist, I think, but I would push that this can be applied to why you do anything. I think has a little bit of this sort of, I don't know, X factor amount of faith going on.
So this is George A. Romero's KNIGHTRIDERS, and as Seth was saying to me earlier, George A. Romero obviously is known for zombie flicks, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, which I love Dawn of the Dead the most.
Me too. I love both.
But they're both good. And then Creepshow is another one where this is just a side note, but Stephen King has a cameo as Hoagie Man in KNIGHTRIDERS, and it's because he was writing Creepshow with Romero at the time. So he's actually an extra in KNIGHTRIDERS towards the beginning. He's one of the dudes, and his wife also, Tabitha, is in the movie. They're just kind of on the sidelines. But that kind of puts it in a place in time where it's like 1981. He'd already done some things, but then all of a sudden we have this kind of departure from horror entirely into King Arthur Fantasyland.
Well, at least that's what it feels like in the introductory moment of this. You think that, okay, like George A. Romero is making a fantasy movie because it feels
like Legend.
Like Legend or
Yeah.
Excalibur, because we open with this misty sort of look. We're in the woods, and Ed
They're
Harris.
naked.
Yeah, young Ed Harris is in this movie. He's the lead, and they're naked in the woods. They awake, and he has like his sword, and he's whipping himself for penitence, like a knight does.
Mm-hmm.
And he suits up in his armor with his woman, and they don't get on a horse; they get on a motorcycle, and they go off onto the main highway. And that's the introduction to this movie. But the music is still blaring in this very fantasy mode, which is kind of great. So what you're set up for here is. Yeah, it is George A. Romero's sort of passion project. It escapes genre. It is about being an artist, about being sort of caught up in, I don't know, being a freak, being a theater kid, being like a director who has to manage people, or being an actor who is a part of this alternative world, right?
And it's also kind of like the game Balderdash, where they have cards that have movie plots that sound ludicrous. Yes. I feel like this is a Balderdash plot where it's like taking, because if you're combining like King Arthur with bikers, that already is kind of like a board game where you would take this element over here and this element and put them together and see like what would come out of it. So I feel like that's already the way that it starts out. You're like, okay, this is kind of a mishmash of seemingly antithetical or like irreconcilable elements.
Yes, because the greater plot is that he's the leader, he's the king, everything's in quotation marks because you're like, well, it's not real, but they're really acting like of this Renaissance fair. It's like this traveling Renaissance troupe, but with the twist of they joust on motorcycles and they have these battles on motorcycles and stuff. And there's this whole, I think the first 25 minutes or so, I don't know if you had this experience. I even had it on my second watch here, where I'm like, I think you're kind of supposed to feel like the audience in this crowd who's like, what is this? Like, this is silly. Like, am I supposed to like be taking this as like, does this look cool? Like, sometimes it's like, oh, cool, they're like riding a dirt bike and hitting a guy with a mace or something. But then at the same time, then they zoom out and there's like just a person eating a hot dog watching it, like with slack jaw, and it's just like, is this? Am I supposed to take this seriously? Am I supposed to? And I think that's part of the magic of the movie. You kind of are never settled necessarily.
All you kind of know is that the characters are taking it very seriously, and I think that's kind of the point. Is like Ed Harris's character Billy is like a purist. He doesn't even want, like, there's a scene where they start playing disco music and he is enraged because it is not of the time. Like, he doesn't. So even though he's okay mixing the bike with like Arthurian legend, he's like not okay with like making it too modern. But it's like all in his head about his own code. And so I think that the presence of a code that they all have is what makes it feel very authentic. Because I feel like people in these scenarios, they take things quite seriously. And they're very detailed about like cosplay. You know what I mean? Like costumes and all that stuff. It's quite serious, even though it is for fun.
And there's layers, just like in religion, which that's definitely an easy comparison for this, is like either cult or spirituality or religion falls into like the way this all works. There's like sort of everybody kind of approaches it different, almost like different orthodoxy. There's Ed Harris, who is like the absolute zealot, true believer. He doesn't want anybody intermingling like modern stuff into this too much. Even like a kid, there's a scene where a kid walks up to him and he's like, "Will you sign my dirt bike magazine? You're my hero." And he's like, he looks at it, he's like, "I don't like this sort of thing. Get out of here." Which is like, and of course the other guy, Morgan, who is sort of his foil, which is interesting. Morgan is Morgan Le Fay is his name, which in the Arthurian legend is Arthur's nemesis, right?
Right.
And he's sort of the Black Knight. But he's sort of the foil in that he signs the magazine in this scene for the kid because he's like, well, yeah, I mean, this is cool. Like, the kid thinks I'm a hero or something. This is like the split of the orthodoxy in that way, where he's sort of like, well, you know, like the equivalent of someone going to the Catholic Church and being like, well, it feels good to be in community, and you know, maybe there's something out there. But it's more of that kind of thing rather than like, I live by a code. There is a God. Like, this is sort of the split, which for me, where a lot of this becomes personal, is that I'm an artist and I'm in bands and I'm often in sort of like alternative DIY communities, which there's all kinds of layers to experience there, and also ideas of at this level where you are playing at somebody's house sometimes, or at a warehouse in the middle of nowhere for sometimes 20 people, maybe less, sometimes more, and you have this kind of scrappy time. You're just bringing the equipment in yourself more than often. It is not a glamorous thing to do, and you're at the end of it all, your parents are probably going to ask you like, "That's nice, but did you get paid for that?" Or like, it's that whole thing. And it's like the question is like, why does it keep happening? Why do these people do this sort of thing? Or why do people play Magic the Gathering as adults? They're just like with these cards, they like, isn't that childish? It's got dragons on the on the cards and stuff,
I know. And I think that you're illustrating a great point. That I thought the best scene was by the bonfire where he's
Me too.
was his name Steve, or he had a very basic like male
Yes,
name.
Steve the lawyer, I think, is talking to him, right?
Right. So he's like, oh, I'm trying to get us representation and we might be able to make some actual money off of this. And Billy is so offended. And it's just like what you're saying, which is, why can't we just have fun? Like, why can't this just be our thing? Why does it have to be commercialized? Because when you commercialize things, you don't make your own rules anymore. I mean, this is such a, like, a timeless argument about selling out and not wanting to sell out, but then being tempted by the luxury and comforts of the world and fame and all of those things. And then I think Billy just really represents the true artist, who is what you're saying, like playing, whether there's 20 people or 1,000, it really, really is irrelevant to him, because it's all about like doing this activity that he cares so much about and maintaining the essence of it in the performative nature still.
Yeah, that scene is pretty key. The lawyer comes in at like because again, like everybody who has like this sort of situation going on, you might need a lawyer or something, or might need somebody handling the books, right? Which he says, the lawyer Steve says, like, money makes the world go around, even your world, Billy. Which is, it's sort of this thing. Then you can see that Billy, we should call him Sir William, because that is his proper title.
Yes.
And I think he would prefer that. He understands that on some level, but he chafes clearly because it interferes with the whole thing. And it is always this push and pull of discomfort. When you're in these communities, you're trying to do something that is basically antithetical to the everyday person, really. The everyday, or at least what is prescribed by the greater culture, especially under capitalism and things like that, which is like, well, everything you should be doing should be producing, benefiting you. You should be getting, like, you don't just have a
but
house,
there needs to be like measurable outcomes.
Get a bigger house.
Yeah. Right. Like physical manifestations of like that are mirroring your level of success, rather than anything internal or anything that has to do with relationships, because those things can't be measured in quite the same way.
Yes. And again, you see the back and forth even in yourself as a viewer watching this, I think, in that there's like moments where you're on board with Billy and you're really taking it all seriously, and you see other characters taking it very seriously. There's like a gay minstrel character. There's like a whole gay subplot in this, which is pretty wild for 1981.
And it's handled so like softly, like gently, and very. It feels so genuine that that's another bonfire conversation where she's like, "Are you gay or not?" And he's like, "I don't know," but it feels like they're really having that conversation in front of us. Like there's just no pretension in this film.
Yeah, totally. That's just very like on the nose, but he's also a character who says things like, if you don't get a spiritual fix out of this, I don't know what will give you a spiritual fix, right? This being like, well, what is this? Like, that's constantly the thing, is like, what do people mean when they're talking about this? Like, what is it that they are doing? And I think to each one of them, it's a different thing. It's like, which is what community is, which is what, like, for a character like that, it's a place of safety, a place to maybe start to be yourself. It's a space that you feel free in. Maybe you don't even have to necessarily feel like you're a king like Sir William, but for various people, it's this wish fulfillment and also a safe place.
It almost kind of reminds me, because I just rewatched Fight Club a couple months ago, and I read your review, and you have great reviews on Fight Club on Letterboxd, because you just kind of like have all these thoughts about the time that you saw it and everything. But it kind of reminds me of that, where it's like, that is kind of what Ed Norton's character is searching for the entire time. Like it's kind of a similar vibe, where it's like materialism isn't the answer. This isn't going to make you happy. This isn't going to make you happy. But he is really searching for a niche community that has similar ideals that he can fill, that he can contribute to in a meaningful way. So it's kind of, it's like, where do you have to go to kind of get this essential thing that we all need all the time? And it seems like the only people who find it are the ones that really, really pursue their hobbies, like hard, as opposed to passively.
It can be hobbies. I think it can be something like a career that produces for you. I think it just you luck out that way. I think sometimes that like someone can be a lawyer or something, and that does give them the same kind of like, it's a community. It is like something greater than myself. It provides.
I am like of service.
Mm-hmm. Or like I said, like church spirituality, something like that. Or romance is a space too that you create that is, you don't want to use the word escape, but it's another world unto itself that we can't help but seek when the rest of the world is so complex and the rest of the world doesn't feel like it fits us.
But where do you see the fine line between, I think you'll have great insight into this whole thing, because at some point it becomes problematic. If you are escaping reality and then your playground is causing problems in your real life, what is the balance between these things? Because I think that's what this movie is ultimately about, that you can't escape the encroachment of responsibility, the law, the cop. Like, you can't escape consequences and you can't completely shield yourself off. But what is like how do you best sort of do that in life?
I don't think there's one answer. I think it's every single day that you are going to be faced with, okay, you got this part of it squared away that allows you to continue to do whatever it is. Because it's like it's not this cute little movie, which is true, like where you just, they found community and they found a way to express themselves and this makes them happy, and then they're just happy. Like, no one who finds their thing knows that is just like, like from now on I'll never have to worry about anything and I'm shielded from the world. Like, it is daily that there will be new angles that the world can come at you, and the outside of that comes at you, and a new angles of ways of like figuring out how to balance this. It's like maybe you figured out that like, okay, I got an accountant for my Renaissance fair, but now I got sued by this guy, and it's just like, this is going and you have to figure all that out while somehow maintaining and not losing faith and not becoming jaded and giving in to the whole thing, which tells you this was all silly to begin with. Why did you try and do this? But I think, the worry there is either losing that beautiful thing that you found because it's just too hard to follow, and it would be easier.
It's like incompatible with the world.
Yeah, it would just be easier to follow a set path that someone else does. Or the other path is that your life becomes that your life is still going on outside of this thing. That this is still only one part of life. I think is sort of a difficult swallow. And again, like a thing that I sometimes have to, like every day, sort of swallow that pill a little bit, that no, you're going to need to still do your taxes. You're going to need to take out the trash. You might have to say no to some things here and there. You might have to like feel a little stifled from time to time because you won't be able to. But really, you don't want to just be a person who's feeding their id or like just being obsessed with their own ego in this whole thing of like whatever your thing is, fandom or art or whatever it is, or spirituality. You don't want that to be what it is, right?
Yeah, and I think Romero is kind of also it's kind of a commentary on filmmaking too, right? Because filmmaking can be what we're describing. I mean, the original cut was like 17 hours.
It's
so,
crazy.
like obviously Romero is very invested in like the whole Renaissance Fair thing. I mean, he's just it feels like he really, really knows it and he's very comfortable with it and he's familiar, but it gets into that where it's like, oh, how much of this is sort of autobiographical in conjunction with being like the director of a film and being so invested that you give your whole life to it. But then it ends. And in the midst of filmmaking, there's all of these logistical problems that constantly are interfering with the creative process or putting it in danger of being derailed. So I feel like this is also just like a mirror of what maybe he experienced personally with even making anything. And then it's like projected onto these characters in their setting.
Well, I don't think it's an accident that his main special effects guy, Tom Savini, the famous Savini, who makes all of his dreams come true and actualizes his gory zombie makeup, right, for Dawn of the Dead and everything else, is playing the foil to the fanciful king, who's playing Morgan, who is the more down to earth and maybe trying to like, I don't know. There's something interesting there that he's like, the dream is sort of, I don't know, giving him friction. It's also challenging him. It's not just always letting him just have his way. That it's sometimes it's his enemy too. Like your thing that you chase is sometimes like a burden. Other times,
or
it's
just that you don't have all the freedom that you want, like because filmmaking is collaborative and what they're doing in the film is collaborative. That sense of like total omnipotence that I think Sir William wants to feel over everything. It's like, well, you're not the only one here, you know? There are other people, and Romero does a fantastic job of showing us their lives behind the scenes, which are scary. Like the girl going to her house and her mother is being like beaten by her father, and like there's these very harsh realities interwoven, which I think is just so smart to do, because it's like, yeah, you can run off and you can play pretend, and it's not that he's like diminishing how important that is, but at the same time, there's like bad things happening over here, and you're not completely able to separate yourself from those things.
Or there's characters that can, like, yeah, Julie is a love interest of one of the knights here, who, yeah, is sort of just happened upon the Renaissance Fair, and eventually she falls in love with the knight and everything because she's just like caught up in this escape, which is like a literal escape from her like abusive household, which there's something beautiful about that, but there's also like when the knight figures out that she's just kind of in it for the escape of it, it's almost like again the knight is worshiping at the altar in a different way than in a different orthodox than that, because it's seeing as like, well, no, I don't see this as just an escape. I don't see this as an empty just fun out here, and it creates friction, and they ultimately break up in the film. He like takes her back home, which is again this kind of interesting like layer of like on one end purity and on another end like, buddy, you're taking this way too seriously. Like I don't know, which is always how this stuff is teetering. I've definitely seen it in myself. I've gone through phases where, you know, where we're making this band and I am like quite often the one who is taking it very seriously. I with a lot of the time that's interesting. I'm the one who knows the least about music. I'm the one who writes all the songs almost across the board with my projects and stuff. My friends who make it all happen are the ones that do know more about music than me and are more like they're less inclined to this sort of, they're passionate but maybe less inclined to this like vision, like I'm just like there's a purity, and sometimes I'm the one who's caught up in that, where they're like, well, I like guitar pedals, and like I'm interested in electronics, and they're more of, again, like the Morgan character, which I sometimes need that, like, come down out of the clouds here, and like we need to figure out, like, do we really want to play this show that's in like this like basement that's leaking or something, or like, you know, you might want to actually tune your guitar, Seth, kind of things like that.
It's very, so I think I relate so strongly to what you're saying, because I'm usually the originator of the thing. And then I have like people who can help me facilitate in ways that I don't know anything about. And I'm so grateful for any kind of help that I get that's technical, or because I don't know about anything. But when it comes to like creative vision or like writing, or, that you get inspired by something and then you want to see it and you have a perfectionistic view about it, that is, I think, very, very, that's an artistic sensibility of the person who's actually the one that isn't behind the scenes. It's the one who's actually creating the work that the behind the scenes are sort of supporting. So I think in your particular way, it is very close to Sir William in the sense that it's like, you're sort of the one that is putting forth the thing that everyone's there to support. And so there's a responsibility there and a desire for that to be very high quality, or just to the best of your ability. And I think we have our own standards for ourselves where that's concerned too, that are kind of oppressive.
Sure, and if you're the one singing in the band, or it's a podcast called Amy's Progress, like obviously there's going to be there's a personal thing for you specifically that maybe someone who's editing and putting together your podcast doesn't have the same skin in the game, right? But both are like so integral. It's an ecosystem, right? It's really beautiful symbiosis that happens with that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, finding the top for the hat for your head. It all works out in that way.
And I think that's why there's some directors. I mean, Romero directed this and wrote it, and I think he edited it too. So there's also that. Soderbergh does this. There's a bunch of directors where they want to do the whole thing, and I understand. Like, they want to edit it, they want to cut it, because no one is going to care about your personal project more than you. And you could have the best editor, the best everything, but they're, like you're saying, they are more laid back, generally speaking, because it isn't their like soul in it in the same, I don't know, Genesis sense. Like, I made Amy's Progress. It came out of my head. And so people can help me with it, but it just isn't the same relationship.
Of course.
I don't think it can be,
So you find the people that are inclined to like, well, I wouldn't want to do what Amy's doing. I wouldn't want that role. But it's like, there's all these roles to be filled for various personalities. It's the only way this stuff actually happens. And I think that person needs to be checked, right? Like, I've definitely had
I agree,
where, I can catch myself, like somebody comes up and it's like, oh, I like your stuff. It's like kind of punk rock or something. And I'm like, you can get like very in your head. It's like, it's not punk rock. It's minimalist.
Well, actually,
like and all, and it's like, that's cool. Okay, well, I don't care. Bye.
I'm not going to sign your magazine. Like, okay, that's that thing. It's like, I can't sign this magazine.
Right. You need to come down. Yeah, because again, you don't want to be that person, and it's not really that for you. And really, like, what you're missing out in that moment is like that
connection.
Somebody actually gave a shit about what you're doing and noticed, and like, I see what you're doing. Like, that should be, of course, not. That's also the danger. It's like, you're not up there. You're not putting stuff out there simply for ego gratification, which I think we can see in Knight Riders here and there. That, like, Morgan is a character who wants to show off. He wants to get the ladies for doing this night thing, and he does. He's like sleeping around constantly, but which, hey, God bless people that are doing that, but I don't know. That also has its dangers, that you're just sort of using this to get things. Ideally, there is a purity to what you do. If you're going to do it a lot and make it a big part of your life, ideally there's something pure that you're sharing, and that it's not just, again, like this capitalist sort of mindset of like doing this in order to get this.
It's like the dream of the blackbird. I feel like there's like a mystical quality to the movie where it's like there's these.
Oh, I don't know what the blackbird is.
Well, when Sir William says he had a dream of the blackbird, he just has this like this like feeling of impending doom or just a bad omen. And so you could take certain elements of the film and say, well, this is part of that dream of the blackbird. Like commercialization is part of that, or fear of other people not taking the role as seriously as you, or fear that they're going to leave you if the stakes are too high or there's not enough money or whatnot. So I think there's a lot of spiritual fears as well as like very literal ones in the film.
Because it really does go around and round in keeping the faith with anything. I definitely, like, I'm sitting under this painting. This is, if anyone is watching this on the video, they can see this pretty detailed, there's a bunch of beautiful looking goats. Actually, yeah, they're mountain goats. My dad does nature art, and this is his painting. Notice that it's a very beautiful painting, but it is not hung up in a gallery somewhere. He made it years and years ago, and I could imagine he wanted to sell it. Where does it wind up? It winds up in his son's house as a gift. I can remember him painting that in the basement, and that was always like my dad's kind of sanctum, was the basement. He would go out and he would do what he had to do and work, and then he would go down in the basement, and I would see him paint these and spend hours and hours like this. These like very detail oriented nature art. But it was like immediately this thing branded onto me that like that was a normal thing. It was never like my introduction to art was not, in a gallery people make, like, famous artists make a lot of money or something. Like I even like brought that into like, oh well, like I heard the Beatles for the first time. They're like my dad. They just like do this because they love this. It was
in their basement.
It was like kind of a new thing to me, like eventually to be like, oh, they made millions of dollars and things like that, which is the thing to like that I can see eventually I saw my dad's struggles with the and frustrations, as much as he would sit me down and say like, you don't do this to make money, and you should do it because you love it, and you make art to express yourself, and all the stuff that everybody says. But then I can see, like we do with our parents, they say one thing and then they do another thing, like, which is obviously just prophecy for how you're going to be. We all will do this sort of stuff. I could see him, once I started being in bands and things, like, okay, but like, so how much money did you make? Like, he would say both things, where he would say like, that's amazing, you're expressing yourself, this stuff is like the best stuff you've ever made. And then there would be this other side of him that like he would have to say like, now how much money did you make? Or, and I catch it, but it's in myself too. It's in everybody that it's this ongoing struggle with like, okay, like I find this in community of like Magic the Gathering people, or like I play chess in a chess club or something. But like, are we gonna get anywhere with this? There's like days like that. There's just always gonna be that like contradictory push and pull, because I think that the problem is because of things like the Beatles, where we've been like, well, there's like always that potential though. Like, I could do this thing that I organically love, and maybe someone will give me $1 million for it. Like, which drives people kind of insane.
And then the people who get the $1 million end up changing their art to where it's not even usually recognizable to what it was in its initial form.
Yes.
So that I was going to say one quote I wrote down, you just sort of described a struggle, but in your review for Knightriders, you call it a dance, which I think is a very beautiful way to say it. You said, It's a full scale embrace of what the dance is, that the movie is. And you said it is about doing whatever it is that it's necessary to maintain the thing that gets you down the road, the thing that enchants the world with meaning, and the act of doing so is a good unto itself. So it's like you do it for the sake of the thing, but it's also that this is the way to get me down the road. Not to say like financially, but just me, my quality of life, my creative expression, my need to do something in a space. And so I thought that was a really beautiful way of putting it. And I wrote a question underneath it that said,
Thank you.
What is your version of night writing? But I think you've already kind of told us what yours is.
A bit. Yeah, a few of them. But yeah, notice the key word is maintain, not flourish, not not constantly seeking or building necessarily. That's different. I think that kind of dance should be, which I think like this is, yeah, it's easy to say that this is about artists or spirituality or something like that, but I do think it goes into everything someone does. That I think that is such a better place to, that's a better word to focus on, I think, is to maintain and keep the thing going, as opposed to this very, I think, American idea of everything like, well, it's good, but it's got to be more. It's got to be
or
more,
new,
more, new, all
different,
of this stuff.
Exciting, start from scratch.
Which is what gets people to like need like think that they need more than they actually do, and take whether it be from the environment or from other human beings, like in your personal relationships, like just not being able to be settled in any of that or satisfied with what is, because you can always chase forever. You can chase forever and be unsatisfied forever, which really the good that you can be is to somehow find a way of being a satisfied person, I think. Not a person who is king of the world and has everything. And I think that is what I mean when I say like that's a good in itself that others can see, and that's how you build a good citizen, I think, a good person in the world. And if there's more of those kinds of people, there's less, I think, chance for people having this like dissatisfaction that causes them to harm others or take from others or ask too much of people.
I think I also like the way that you say this, because you and I kind of we've had a lot of like texting conversations about relationships and like personal growth and things like that. And something that I always think of with you is that maintenance should not be a drag. Like I just thought of like when the engine light comes on your car, okay? There are a lot of people in the world where they ignore it and they see it as like, ugh, I don't want to have to deal with this. The engine light is a warning system, just like your emotions are, that something is wrong. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. It's that something is wrong. Hey, I'm letting you know. It's kind of like a tap on the shoulder. So if we could sort of approach life as maintenance is not an inconvenience, it is a good thing to do. It is a edifying process. Then perhaps our opinion of the process of actually doing it wouldn't be a drag, because we're reformatting. Like when I see the engine light, I call my mechanic and I take my car in. I've always done this with all of my things, okay? So I'm very much like, I want to be on top of it. Health, everything. It's like you have a warning sign, you take care of it. But so much of especially American culture's attitude is like, ignore it. Like, or maybe it'll fix on its own. I'll deal with it later. And that's what causes this, I think, perception that maintenance is work and that it's a negative as opposed to a positive.
That's so well said. I think that is at the heart of the struggle here, and it's definitely something that has always impeded me as a person, because I quite often I chafe on those things, because it's like, just the other day, like, we were having issues in the basement, like with there was some leakage on the ceiling. We were like trying to figure that out, and I'm like, it's like, of course, it's like right before I'm gonna go to band practice, which of course you need to zoom out and see, like, there's a little tension there. There's a little silliness to you, like, when both things can be important and both things can be integrated, like, because yeah, you're gonna throw a little fit because, like, oh, the world is not cohering to my vision of what I want to do with my afternoon, which is just a very, like, when you boil it down to that, it's like very typical lesson to learn, which is really the thing, is to not be like, I need to somehow find a way of not having a roof over my head that leaks so that I can have band practice. Like, that is antithetical to band practice if you're going to have band practice in the house itself. Like,
it's also the perception of the event. Like, people talk a lot about adjusting expectations. I do not think it's about adjusting expectations, because you could expect bad things to happen suddenly all the time, and that does not mean that you deal with them better. I think we need to adjust our perceptions of how we read an event. Like the roof leaking or whatever happened in conjunction with band practice is not cosmic. Like, you don't have to sit there and be like, oh, like, why did this happen? You could literally be like, okay, like, the roof is leaking and I need to take care of it right now because it's the most important priority. And then put all of your presence into that. Don't analyze it. Don't try to extract, something to get yourself all riled up. But I think we enjoy doing that to a certain extent, where we're just like, we think that we're like, the cosmic universe is conspiring, or like, you know what I mean?
No, totally. And to bring it back to the movie, there's of course, a Merlin character in this. And
yes.
Who is played by an actual performance artist, like street artist.
He seems so real.
He's got his own thing going on. I think he's from, like, Pittsburgh, which Romero's from, and he's like a street artist. But yeah, he is the magician and he's the doctor. And there's a scene which, you can take with a grain of salt, because doctors should be doctors. But he has
he's like a healer.
Line. Yeah, he has a good line where it's like before I was believed in magic, I was still working with glands and organs and things like that, which is, again, not saying that we should give in to, like, New Age doctors or something, but what he's speaking to is that it's maybe more of a joy for him to work in this way if he can. It's about enchanting what you're doing, as opposed to seeing it just as a body full of blood and nerves. It's switching your perception about it to integrate. I think, I think integration is really how you move forward with your dream and maintain your thing with a capital T, right? Is to integrate things into that and allow them to not be like problems and, like, antithetical, but essential to it. And it just, like, it's like, no, like, it's a magical thing that nerves work. It is like a miraculous thing that the brain can do what it does. That, like, and I am a doctor who can help with that. And it's like, that is a switch from, like, oh, I just, I gotta do this job where bodies are just constantly going wrong, and I wish they would just not, like,
it's almost like seeing the romantic in the ordinary.
Yes.
Which
I think people could easily say is just, like, oh, you're being ideological, or you're a dreamer or something. But I don't know how people, and I don't think they do. Everybody has their caveats. I don't know how you get through the world without some of that, like, without some of that mystifying things, adding a little X factor somewhere.
But sometimes, a lot of times, it's not even consciously done. Like, you'll be going somewhere that maybe you've gone like 50 times, and all of a sudden you could notice something different about that environment, and you could be like, wow, I never saw that before. Or I didn't notice it before. Like, there are awe-inspiring experiences that can happen in the mundane all the time. I mean, DFW talks about this constantly, right?
Dave
Like,
Foster Wallace.
yeah, this is water, that when you're a fish, you don't appreciate water and you don't notice the things around you because you're just like on default all the time. And that if you would become conscious of how many things are just amazing, that things like run at all. Sometimes I'm literally driving in traffic and I'm amazed that accidents don't happen every other second with all these people that could be on their phones, all these people who could be speeding. They could be thinking about a million other things, but traffic is usually seamless. And I get from one place to the other, you know, there's
Crazy.
there's amazing things all the time is all I'm trying to say.
Of course. It's hard to stay there with it. That's always the trick. It's like
but it is a choice, Seth.
It's a choice, and I think it's like a practice that you can implement and becomes easier and easier to give yourself a way to, I guess, turning off the other kind of voice that you can have, which is just what we're talking about, where it's just like, oh, like all this stuff is ugly and against me, or yeah, the parts that will, in context of your thing or your dream, or that, you know, the Renaissance fair with dirt bikes is like, there's a very clear voice that is very easy to access that is like, this is all stupid and a waste of time, and everybody is right about this. You kind of have to have there's got to be a certain point where I think you kind of got to turn that voice off and give yourself over a little bit. I think there's like some faith to it. In order for it to work.
There's also a line, the when they were talking about the guy who wasn't saying if he was gay or not, there was a woman there who was like, I wrote this line down where she's like, I don't take any heat because I know who I am. And she's so that could be another aspect of this, that when you're struggling with hearing the voice of that's criticizing, you kind of don't know who you are. Like, it could be argued that that voice is silenced by not only acceptance, but like confidence in who you are and what you're doing. Like, if you look at the situation and you're like, yeah, this is who I am, and so I have guts and I don't take crap from people, you won't. And that voice is not gonna, you know what I mean? There is a way to, like, I don't believe in like talking to yourself in the mirror necessarily. I'm not talking about positive affirmations. I'm talking about like your belief system about yourself does affect what you listen to and how you internalize feedback.
No, that's true. It's a process to get there, but ideally you get there with various aspects of your life. And I think, again, it's like a daily thing of just like, oh, this is like yet another part of myself that I haven't like squared away or brought into cohesion. It's still splitting into different paths where it needs to coalesce at least to a more functional like single path, I think, is always the thing you're trying to attempt.
Yeah, it's this interesting balance between, I don't know really how to reconcile the idea that they're having a flight from reality or that they're trying to integrate reality, because there's certain movies where it's like very obvious that these people are like off the reservation and that they need to come home type of thing. But with this, I feel like it's such a tension between Sir William's desire to really actualize a perfect world and then all the interference that comes, that's frustrating. And then how do you not flee from reality, but still do what you love if it's not your source of income?
I guess the key is that you don't flee from reality. That
okay, so you think there's a way to do this?
I guess so, and I think that is through just admitting what is true, that this is all taking place in the same reality. Like, this is, and maybe that ruffles you for a second. Maybe that looks like disillusion. That, like, actually, no, it's true. Like, it is the year 1981, and you are riding dirt bikes rather than horses. You have to hold that in your head as well as, and then therefore like enchant that reality. They like actual what is here is, yeah, like that's the difference between uh, like something healthy and something that's a hallucination, which by the end there is a full hallucination for William, Sir William the King, who is suddenly on a horse, and he's like we see him on a horse instead of on a motorcycle, and that's when he meets his ultimate demise. He goes too far into the fantasy and loses the reality, which the ideal should be to not flee from reality, but make reality the thing that you can live in, that is like a good place to be.
Kind of like Patterson. Patterson is like this, the movie with Adam Driver, where it's all about contentment in reality. And he is so, like, he's a poet, but he's a bus driver, but he's not fleeing anything. And the whole movie is just about being happy in your life and like not seeking elsewhere or think that you could do better elsewhere or do, you know what I mean? There's the Patterson is like a full embrace of everyday contentment, and it's not against routine or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or having just day in and day out. And I feel like our culture is so like in rebellion against that notion, even though that is what works,
Yeah, that's a great movie to bring into this. Yeah, he's a poet who barely tells anyone that he's a poet. He just has, again, it goes down to his basement sanctum,
just like your dad.
Yeah, and it takes his girlfriend to tell him like you should put these out. You should do something with these, which again is like, it's a fine thing. That's a fine thing for someone to say. And it's a fine thing to try and like, yeah, why not? Like show it to people if you want, if that feels like it's pushing you somewhere. But yeah, obviously there's a danger in losing that purity and no longer doing like what you're talking about, which is like finding a way more healthy goal, which is satisfaction in your life. And if suddenly you find yourself like, well, now I'm dissatisfied because now I'm just like aware that like I'm just a loser in a basement scribbling at poems and no one's going to ever read them, and suddenly that bothers you, like you've kind of like got to find a way back probably if you can.
Right.
Or like, again, like, yeah, take that in, and like that's new data that you have to process. That's like, yeah, that's kind of true in some ways. Yeah, this might disappear. Are you okay with it disappearing? Maybe you do need to scratch that itch and get out there and show some people, or do some reading somewhere or something like that. Maybe that will, again, like maybe that'll find you in a more satisfied place because you got this new data that freaked you out, right?
But also Patterson is saying, if you don't change at all, that's okay too.
Yeah.
If you literally write poems at the end on a bench with an old man sitting next to you and no one reads them, it's okay. I feel like we need permission for our creative endeavors not to be monetarily rewarded as a yardstick of how valuable it is, or even how valuable it is to us. Like, that's why I love the end of that movie. It's not that like he loses his journal and then he decides that he wants to be famous. He literally is the same person, and there are new poems, and we start over, and like we get a new notebook. And that in itself is what you're talking about in the quote I read. You're saying doing it for the sake of the thing. And that's kind of Birdman too. The thing, what it was, the quote that he reads where it's like the portrayal of the thing is not the thing. You're after like this essence.
That's so at that's so at the heart of what I like about this movie on a couple different levels, and also the movies that I would compare to it that like get me fired up has always been, and I integrate it into my I make my own short films and things, and like one of my favorite things is something like this where it is So what are you saying? It's the representation of the thing,
right?
or
It's like the picture, the describing the thing is not the thing.
yes.
There's a quote that Michael Keaton has on his wall.
Like, well, yeah, one of my favorite things is something like why I like kind of hokey homemade art or like homemade movies that like very clearly that's a rubber suit, or like you like yeah, like you can just look at it and know that it's fake, but it's defiant. It's like defying you. It's like defiantly just going to continue to be what it's not or something,
Oh, I
and
see what you're saying.
until it basically is inseparable. It is now real or something. I kind of love that push and pull, and it's not so much that it ever becomes the thing. It is always a guy in a rubber suit, but maybe
Getting
that's kind of what's
closer.
you're getting closer, but it's also just true like of the dance of it, that it's oscillating, and that's okay, that it's like both things. It is this thing aspiring to be a thing, and it's not really that thing. Uh I kind of love that about this, which yeah, I could compare it to My Own Private Idaho, this movie, and that it
Mm-hmm.
does that kind of thing where it's like that's one of the hurdles with that movie, that someone could totally turn it off for, which for a segment of it, it is realistic street kids, prostitute kids, like in a realistic modern setting, and then all of a sudden they start speaking Shakespeare language.
By the bonfire again. We've got bonfire
Yes.
conversations,
Oh
deep
yeah.
thoughts.
And
Yeah.
it bothers an audience member. Like that kind of like exchange doesn't happen in movies very often because it bothers audiences so much. Like same with like, wait, is it King Arthur or is it a dirt bike? Like wait, like that is
What are we
bothersome. It needs to
doing?
be
Uh-huh.
one thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
is this in reality? Which again is like that's what you really could zoom out into, is just like, well, no, this is a movie. It's not real. Like these people are actors, and that is River Phoenix. Like, and that's Keanu Reeves. And it's okay to like allow that to be true. Like it, like always needing this thing in
Explanation.
explanation, or needing this like I need to be convinced as an audience member, I think is a great thing to get over. As much as I love like a lush blockbuster fantasy movie that totally gets me into the world or something, I also love seeing those cracks that like which are closer to reality to me, that like yeah, suddenly River Phoenix is speaking Henry VIII quotes, and we're not in the real world anymore. There's sort of a collision with the real world happening. But that speaks to a truth that there is a magic behind the real world, I think, that a
Yes.
lot of people don't believe in. I do believe that you have access to enchanting something like a just a street kid on in a horrible situation. That person can have sort of a underlying magical world that they live in, or they can enchant things to make it better for them. And I think we can all kind of take that into our book.
It's also the idea that I think is really powerful, that sometimes artifice, the presence of artifice, can highlight truth better than
Mm-hmm.
if they. So one example of this that just came to mind is like Dogville, because Von Trier makes it on a stage, and there's all this masking tape. Like you can tell very, very easily this is totally fake. It is not a village. They're operating as if, like, they're doing motions for things, it's fake, but it actually serves to. It's weird because you would think artifice would not strip away artifice, but it's like in the presence of pretending, you actually are able to express something a lot more real. Hal Hartley does this a lot in his movies. The dialogue is kind of off-putting for some people. For me, I'm like, no, but it gets at something more real than real dialogue.
Right, it's like people don't talk like that. And it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. It's like, but it's you realize that it's doing something broader than that. It's people think like that. There people
exactly
are like that.
Yes. And so it's stripping away at something. It's almost like it's like disarming us by putting something that seems kind of phony at first, or like a gimmick. And then it's like, oh, I can actually more easily allow myself to go with something that might be uncomfortable because I feel kind of protected by this remove. I don't know.
Yeah, it's heady stuff. It's hard to get to the bottom of, but it has something to do with juxtaposition and how juxtaposition startles you. I think that
in contrast.
Yeah, in contrast, something that's like not ordinarily there, and I think contending with that, which has always been a thing that I've been attracted to since I was a kid, just like some sort of like that doesn't line up with that, but really it points to the possibility of both things being there and like enchanting each other. Like a painting is just a board, it's just wood. What am I looking at, really? Why is then there's like stuff on it. My brain creates something. Like there's books are just words on a page. It's just ink on a page. My brain creates something by what is given to me. That's magical stuff that Merlin's talking about to me. But it's which you can go the other route very easily and just poo-poo it and be like, that's just electrical impulses, and we are,
and it's just what's there is there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
romantic.
Like, which one is more helpful to you? Like, really, that's how a lot of these things work. Of course, all of this is like to say that you got to watch yourself. It can be dangerous too. Yeah, you can just start spewing nonsense at a certain point and start a cult. Yeah,
like Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys.
I've never seen that, actually. That's like a big
oh my gosh, you have to.
I know,
you would love that. It's so that's all he's doing is spouting off stuff. Okay, so tell me your 3 films that you would pair with Knight Riders. I think we covered the absolutely most vital elements, and I'm very happy with this conversation, but I need to know what your last 3, what you would pair with this before we go.
Well, I already said My Own Private Idaho.
Okay, I figured that was one.
For the reasons that I stated. I went crazy. I have like a whole list of it. I have to do 3.
All right, give me 3 and then runners up.
Okay. Next one would be a more obscure movie that came out this year, Room Temperature, directed by Dennis Cooper, who is an author of like he's like kind of surreal, experimental, but also very transgressive situations, like in his writing.
Sounds unwatchable.
Yeah, he is kind of unreadable, but his movies
unreadable
are interesting in that he's not interested in actualizing any of the stuff that he talks about, which is often gory and violent, which his whole project winds up being more of what is unspeakable, what we can't, the places our brains can't really get to, like those that bridge that we're talking about between reality and like surreality, which Room Temperature is a family that is putting together a haunted house. They're making their house into a haunted house as a project, and of course it has its own Sir William, which is the dad, who is like orchestrating all of this, and he has like a really crazy vision, and mom is kind of putting up with it, and the kids are helping him. But there's all these like scenes similar to Dogville in that somebody shows up too early to the haunted house and it's not done. And some of it is just like tape on the floor, or like and he's just like, well, over there where I'm pointing, that don't see that as a tape circle on the floor. That is a pool of blood, and there's going to be skeletons in it. Okay, so don't see it as tape on the floor.
Use your imagination.
All we see is tape on the floor. Which again is this. Yeah, I love that kind of push and pull. I think that lines up with this pretty well.
Okay. Room Temperature.
Then I would say Ed Wood.
Oh, Mark loves it. My picture of Mark on his text is Ed Wood. It's literally
Really?
Johnny Depp's face.
That's so
He
funny.
loves that movie. He loves it. Yeah.
I've never talked to Marco about that movie.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's his face on my phone.
That's so funny. Yeah.
That's great that you said that.
No, like talk about a movie that is an example of like Sarah Jessica Parker, Ed Wood's girlfriend in the movie. Who Ed Wood is this film? He is a real life filmmaker who made all these like quote unquote the worst movies of all time.
And he has such a positive attitude.
Yes, and there's a moment where she like they're all having a great time, like all these like people who made this like stupid movie, and his girlfriend sat through it and is like, what is this? She finally gets up and is like, these movies are terrible, which is this sort of like it addresses the audience in this way of like, well, she's not wrong, I guess, but there's something what like that exercises this sort of end of my film watching that is like why I like things that are bad or something.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Again, homemade.
Uh-huh.
That it's really it's more so I like if I can see passion in there, which Ed Wood is full of passion.
Yes.
And he's following his vision and stuff, and he's creating
so innocent about
a
it.
community of freaks that makes his movie is like that is the best. I would wish that for someone over great success, you know.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's great.
And then I have it's kind of toss up as Brick.
Oh, okay. Rian Johnson.
Which I guess is a similar choice for Private Idaho in that everything that you're seeing is not lining up with what you're hearing. Or
right.
Like it's like a teenage drama.
That sounds like Aaron Sorkin. Like the dialogue is super fast. Or like Aaron Sorkin, but like a screwball comedy, like the fast.
Yeah, they're talking Raymond Chandler, like mystery,
like noir.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is solving a mystery, and he talks like no one would ever speak.
I know. Yeah.
But he's also implementing like, you know, it's like, well, after lunch I gotta go talk to the dame, you know, like stuff
right.
like that.
That's what I mean, noir.
Like,
super
great.
Noir.
Which again,
that's a good one.
Enchants the real world. After that movie, you kind of look around and you feel like, you know, what you're seeing is maybe more mystical than it is. Runners up being like A Knight's Tale.
I love A Knight's Tale.
I love A Knight's Tale.
They just had like their 15th anniversary or whatever, and I almost watched it. It's on Disney Plus right now, I think, Hulu, but it's so good.
There's no way the director of A Knight's Tale isn't a Knight Riders fan, in my opinion, because it is so...
That is such a good comparison,
They're
Seth.
playing Queen while they're doing jousting and stuff, and there's all this, like, they talk like modern people, and
then they have Chaucer. Is that who he is? Bill Bellamy is? Oh, I love Jeff. They call him Jeff.
Which
it's
this
so
movie
good.
also has, like, a ton of, like, the minstrels who announce everything in it, which that's
and like the pretending to play the bugles.
Furthermore, we have Sir William, who is the king in Knight Rider, and William is the knight in A Knight's Tale, and eventually
Heath Ledger
at the end is knighted Sir William, which
nice connection.
Like, no way they're not a fan. That'd be crazy.
That also is a great connection in the way that like A Knight's Tale is set at that time, and then the soundtrack is totally modern.
Juxtapositions again, yeah.
Okay, that's great. My mom loves that movie, but I saw that in the theater when it came out, and I loved it.
And proof that a modern audience can, like a mainstream audience, can handle that sort of thing and go along for the ride of like, oh yeah, this is just a movie, and I understand that that's not actually how it happened in the Dark Ages or whatever, you know, like.
Oh, it's awesome. They do like Queen songs in there. Okay, what's your last runner up?
Oh, okay. I would say I'll just go a little bit more obscure with Lancelot du Lac. It's a Bresson movie.
Oh, wow.
It's the story of the Knights of King Arthur, but in Bressonian sort of lo-fi.
I thought it was called like Lancelot by the Lake or something, because Tyler just watched
this.
My buddy.
That's the French name, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. It's Lancelot
okay, but it's the
of
same
the
movie.
Lake, I think.
Lancelot of the Lake, I think, because he
is
just told us
is
he
the
watched
English
that.
title.
Okay.
And it definitely plays with some of that. Like, he doesn't have the budget to pull off a lot of like this like totally convincing version of the Middle Ages, and I don't think he's interested in doing that. He's interested in like, I don't know, whatever it is that Bresson does, which is so hard to talk about.
I know.
Which is down to just textural, like, people, like, half the time he's like, they're having a conversation and he's zoomed in on the knight's feet or something.
That's why we need Paul Schrader. We just need to call Paul Schrader and have him come and give us a lecture for 3 hours.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
But it has that kind of feeling of like, I'm watching like a bunch of people kind of in cosplay doing this.
Right.
Which only reinforces, again, it's just like, well, yes, this is not actual footage from the Middle Ages. And what we're talking about might be more about, I don't know, something modern than just replicating the Middle Ages or something, or replicating the Arthurian legend.
That's awesome. Those were such good picks, and they were so topical, too. I'm impressed, Seth.
Hey, I'm impressed by you. Hey.
Okay, before you go, plug your show. Before you go, plug your show.
I'm from Unwatchables podcast, friend of Amy's, who has been on our podcast many times, and
yes, and started mine out of yours. Like, I had such a positive experience. I was like, hey, I could do that, and then Mark and Tony and Seth all helped me.
We all
4 years ago,
each other to run off and join the Renaissance Fair of podcasting.
That's right, and we're still going, both of us.
I know, this silly little thing, this silly little cute hobby you guys are doing, you know.
Yeah. Making any money? No.
Making any money at that?
You guys have Patreon, so Patreon, however you say it.
But believe it or not, we do it for some deeper mystical reason that
I see.
Is self-satisfying. But yeah,
what is your next thing? What is your next episode? Tell us that.
So we do movies that are sort of either misunderstood or should have never happened, controversial movies, things like that, hence the name. So we just did an event, a live event at our local theater with Howard the Duck. And we did a live taping of an episode with the crowd there, and it's like a whole discussion about Howard the Duck, along with some people that saw it in its first theatrical run in the 80s, which is pretty awesome. So that's coming out, I think, next week or the week after.
Okay. Yeah, because this will come out next week, so that'll be around the same time. I'll have to plug it for you guys.
Yeah,
because I love Unwatchables, but I can't really engage very well because I'm too much of a wuss to watch the movies that you guys cover. So, but I love how you have film critics. You don't think I could, or you do?
I think you can handle Howard the Duck.
Okay. Just not like the White Ribbon or whatever. I mean, I'm thinking of like some of the things you guys do. I'm like, I don't even want to read the plot synopsis.
Yeah, you know.
No.
But that's the thing about the podcast. We're not edgelords. We're not necessarily inclined to those movies either. So if you're a person like that, I think you can find some place with us, because quite often, yeah, it's like, I really will admit it. Like, I really didn't watch that part of the movie because it was too scary, or like somebody stepped on a monkey. I didn't like that part, so I turned it off. You know.
The main takeaway from that is that I don't know if it was recent, but I really need to see Southland Tales. That was one where I was like, that is something I really want to see and be able to talk to you two about, particularly because I know that one is not unwatchable, but it's just kind of a lot.
To some people it is. It definitely falls into the category of just like similar to
Bananas.
KNIGHTRIDERS, like, what are these guys doing? This is silly. And like other people will watch it and they will find it to be like an epic for the ages that they can study forever, like a Thomas Pynchon book or something, you know.
I think for the cinephile, KNIGHTRIDERS is a great film to add to your list if you haven't seen it already, because you probably, if you're a cinephile, especially horror on Letterboxd, you'll know who Romero is already. This is a hidden gem that I think resonates with guys especially, and people who love movies. I think it's a little bit of a mess at times, and sometimes the scenes are way too long. Like
we didn't even get into that.
I know.
Yeah, even
but,
I can admit, like, it's a 5-star movie because of just like what it does to me. But
right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with like some of this, like where it's like the spectacle where they're just going around in circles, like fighting each other. Like, I don't even know what's happening at a certain point. I don't even know what these guys are doing. I do genuinely feel like an audience member. And it is 2.5 hours long. That's
It is.
It
is a bit lengthy, but it's worth it because I think that if you're a person who has background in movies, especially, you will be able to appreciate it. So check it out. Seth, it was a pleasure. You were the perfect person to cover this with. I'm so honored that you are open with me because it just makes the quality of the discussion so much richer.
Oh my God. This is always a pleasure, and I like that we can talk about things that are deeper than nice lighting, interesting characters, or whatever,
Love the costumes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the costumes were rather unconvincing, actually. I don't think they were very of the period.
With that, thank you, and we'll see you at the movies.